and the goal is to bring you your next favorite band.
Thanks for having us. This is a very cool show.
Yeah, so through many iterations, and we finally landed on the weirdest one by far.
Yeah, simple feelings, and boom, you got a sound.
I remember this one time. I had been writing some songs, and I went out. I'm just going right in on this story. I went out, and so I was.
The story's longer than the song itself. We'll go ahead and play it.
And listen, it's going to be everybody's favorite band. Welcome to your next favorite band. That's both the show title and our promise to you. We here at Stereophilia Studio are tireless in our pursuit of finding incredible, genre-defiant artists who are either a hot up-and-coming band or a group that has been delivering for years but have flown under the radar. Tonight, the airy, synth-pop smooth jams of Tedious and Brief. Each month, we will bring you live streams, audio podcasts, and perhaps even a live concert where you can listen to the stories and hear the music of artists personally curated by us based on what we feel will be worthy of your time. Be sure to subscribe and tune in to each episode because the possibilities are endless and you never know who will be your next favorite band. Hello, everyone. I am your host, Philip Reese.
Hello, and I'm your co-host, David Moore.
And this is
your next favorite band.
Outstanding, David. I am so happy that it's now springtime, festival season.
Oh, the weather is beautiful. The birds are chirping.
The sun is peeking out behind your blackout thing there behind you.
Yeah, it apparently won't give up. Plus that wall is dead west. So whatever time of day it is basically sunny.
Yes. Well, still, it's lovely, and I am here for it. Had a fun little... If you recall, there was one time in the past that we played a little bit of trivia with you.
Okay.
And so I thought I would do it again. Today, we're going to see if you can guess how many you can guess. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's top 10 here.
Okay.
Most Billboard Hot 100 entries. So this is all over the place.
These are singles that have charted, right?
Correct.
So this throws out bands like Pink Floyd because they're not known for their singles.
You're right. There's no Pink Floyd on here. And I will give you one hint.
Mm-hmm.
Third on the list is Taylor Swift. And
I was going to guess Taylor Swift. So you've already
throw that one out there
one
because
of my good ones.
Yeah.
So
well, she was on that tour just recently here in Philadelphia, so I figured I would start there. But
I'll go with the Beatles.
Beatles not on the list.
Okay, the list is broken. So I'm already ready to
I'm wondering what Hot 100 truly defines as.
Yeah, so it's going to be something, it's going to be like really, really big pop thing. So it's going to be like Mariah Carey. It's going to be Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley, number 10.
Right. It's going to be...
And a lot more modern, too. And
yeah, I know. See, because the way that the way they calculated the chart changed. And I think that's one of the things that also breaks these type of rankings where it's like, well, why is it all these other bands? Well, it's like because the bands in prior charts weren't calculated in the same way.
Yep.
God, you're going to make me, because I don't listen to the hottest, dopest singles at this point in time.
No, but they're very recognizable names.
I'm sure they are because they're going to have huge hits. I can't believe the Beatles, that broke me. I'm sorry. That threw me way off.
He's thrown. We could pause and also play this with our guest for today.
She may have some ideas. That might be fun. I got to get another one on this list. I feel like, is Mariah Carey on this list?
She is not.
Oh my God.
But you're in the right zip code.
Right. So I'm thinking like a Whitney Houston, I'm thinking more like the pop diva at that point in time then.
Right.
I mean, Elvis is number 10.
Right.
I don't know. I give up at this point in time.
Let's intro the guest. We'll have them see if they have some guesses, and then I'll reveal the rest of the list. We've got 2 so far.
I'm going to be mad because
Elvis Presley at 10. If anybody wants to put it in the chat to see if they want to make some guesses as well. Most Billboard Hot 100 entries.
Yeah, and see the other thing about the 100.
See, that's a volume play too. It's not
It's not anything other than, I mean, the Beatles, Elvis Presley has 109. If the Beatles had 108, they don't make the list. Like, and it still would be that's kind of the thing. So anyway, today we have Chicago, born and raised, based in Nashville, Jamie Jacobsen from Tedious and Brief. David will get into the bio here, but we wanted to share some music first. And they had this, recently they did a fantastic recording, I guess you might say. It's basically live performances that Audiotree records them live with the stream, and then the audio, it's in the name, is tremendous. And it got released also as like basically its own, I think 6-track EP album. It's in their Spotify, so the quality of that is excellent, so you should go check that out. But we wanted to share one song in particular here today. Here is Pretty by Tedious and Brief.
Someone once said the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. And I see that all the time.
Pretty boy sits on the porch and they just don't know what they want. Pretty boys don't know what they need. Do they want a girl or do they need a friend? They contemplate life in the end. Pretty boy, you're only 13.
Jacobsen is an indie pop songwriter who heads up the groovy, slickly produced project Tedious and Brief. Jacobsen took up guitar and songwriting at a young age. She has mentioned her earliest influences include Stevie Ray Vaughn and Red Hot Chili Peppers, which has evolved into a more polished sound, featuring airy synth elements and vocals akin to Maggie Rogers or Lorde. Her debut single, Papercuts, set the mood for the rest of Tedious and Brief's debut self-titled EP. They've also released a live album featuring their performance on Audiotree Live, which this is featured, and several singles, including Not That Deep, Middle Class, and most recently, Tired Work.
Let's let some of this play. And welcome to the show, Jamie Jacobsen from Tedious and Brief.
Hello.
We're going to let this play in the background while we chat a little bit because, like I was sharing before we started it, this is such a tremendous recording and experience. I would have to think this Audiotree Live thing.
Yeah, it was wild doing it because like it's a Chicago-based like recording, and they're just like, you know, you grow up watching them. I did at least, and so then to be able to do it, also like pretty fresh into like our touring and whatnot was really cool and just kind of a dream come true like early on. So yeah, it was wild. But
that's awesome.
Super cool experience.
Yeah, and let's take a moment to talk about some of the other band members here. We've got Parker Moore on drums. There he is right there. Hubs, right?
What?
Hubs?
That's him. Yeah,
that's your husband.
Also, excellent last name. I mean, let's just call it out. He and I share an excellent last name.
Perhaps related, we don't know.
Probably at some point in time. You know.
Oh, I guarantee it.
Yeah. Zach Lorde, bass and keyboard.
Yep.
And then is it Isaiah Samanda?
No, that's Graham Lyons.
Okay, it's Graham Lyons.
Yeah.
I had something else from Bandcamp, but he's I mean, everyone is so good. Like again, and also your performance, like you do the lovely stank face, which I always love seeing in a performer. It's a lot of fun to watch that happen, and I mean, it's just I so love watching you guys perform. I think you have, it started in 2019, right? It wasn't that long ago, and you've got so many, in my opinion, like hits, anthems already, that it's just like I think people need to be paying attention to what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, they're all killers. Everyone who was part of that performance. Parker and I are kind of like the core of Tedious and Brief, but then we get to work with a bunch of hired guns, and they're just literally all of them are amazing. And yeah, these guys crushed it. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That's kind.
Yeah, and I think too, like the lyrics are strong too. People who listen to the show know it's not necessarily where I focus my attention. I like to just bathe in the sound, and people could be singing in a foreign language and I wouldn't care if it sounded good. but your lyrics they're unique in that they're clever, but they're also just about basic stuff. Like this here is about just how, body image and being comfortable with your own self and not worrying about any other's definition is just so important for kids to listen to as well. Like, I just think it's awesome what you have out there. It's just very, accessible, vulnerable lyrics, but they're also just not basic either. They're very, very clever.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I kind of started off songwriting really. I've actually always been into poetry and just writing. I'm not really great with words and speaking, but
well, I would argue that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know. Parker always says, he's like, why do you always say that? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'm insecure. But yeah, I've always just written things because that's just how I felt like I could get it out. And so then I was like, well, what if I put a cool melody behind this? And and then I did, and I was like, oh, this works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then I solved my problem because it is sort of now it's a thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I saw too that you had a quote out there in some other interview previously that said you're a sucker for nostalgia. And I think there is a lot of nostalgia in your music about, just, that, whether it's teen angst or heartbreak or whatever, just those moments of everyone has experienced them. And it's so nostalgic for people, I think, to kind of slip back into their own memories in, sidecar to what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. I've always been obsessed with that idea of of nostalgia and going back and almost to a fault sometimes, but there's something I think in everyone's past that was perfect, and maybe we idealize it now, but there's a special thing there. And so I think a lot of what I've written and released has been me trying to chase that a little bit and find that again now.
Sure.
So yeah, definitely obsessed with that.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's something to be said for trying to capture those golden moments. And sometimes you don't realize, you said the now, and that's the hardest part, is sometimes you don't even realize them until it has to be before you realize the value that it had.
Right.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I think that's absolutely, one of those, I can't think of the right term, but how it's just true for everybody. What you're saying, David, is, it's so golden, that it will have happened to everyone at some point, and then that's why we love music like that.
Right.
It helps us remember those moments. But before we take a trip back into your personal story, do you have any guesses from this most Billboard Hot 100 entries?
I'm so glad you asked. I do.
Nice.
She looked it up while we were waiting. I know this is exactly
I
what
definitely
happened.
did it. No, I actually didn't. I don't listen to pop music. I've for the past, I get caught on records usually that from the past, and then I just play them for 6 months and I'm obsessed with them. And but from some names I've heard that are popular, I have Doja Cat, Bad Bunny. I know these are newer, not
I
old.
think that's the only thing holding them back is they're newer.
Right.
They would have to have,
Yet.
like I said, at least 110.
Oh dang, Beyonce maybe.
See, that one surprised me that she's not on here.
I wonder if that's because it's divided up amongst Destiny's Child as well
be.
Because of that.
Right.
Is the Stones on that list because of volume? Because if they got 50 years of releasing singles.
True, but no.
All right,
Zeppelin?
he's gonna name the people on this list, and we're just gonna go like this. I mean, yeah, okay.
All right, so we'll start from the top. With
number
294 is Drake, which makes a ton of sense.
Oh, so that's part of that recalculation of the Hot 100, because they take streams into account in a way that was impossible to take. Like, you bought an LP in the 1990s and you listened to it, and you listening to it on Spotify contributes to that, which you buying the new release from whatever band it was 20 years ago and listening to it at home does not count, but it does off now. And that's sort of that fluky thing.
Yeah, you'd almost have to count the times they heard it on the radio.
Well, it's not even just on the radio. I mean, you literally are listening to like the whole album, like we're getting off the point. But
now this was the funniest one to me at 207. So again, almost 100 less. The Glee cast. The cast of Glee now comes in second. That thing must be a moneymaker.
Dude, I hate that.
I know. Isn't that awful?
I feel less bad now about missing my guesses. So like, I'm not.
So then we'll
and then Taylor
run down.
Swift. We know that.
Right. Taylor Swift, Lil Wayne, Future, Kanye West, Lil Baby, Nicki Minaj, and Chris Brown, and then Elvis Presley.
So Jamie was more right than I was.
Well, I was gonna say Kanye. I was thinking of Lil Baby, but I didn't. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all crazy to me.
Yeah, isn't it? Like you said. I mean, to me, it's a shame that something like. I mean, listen, the Glee cast doing some stuff there, but they're not writing the music. They're not whatever. Like to me,
all covers.
right? So
often bad.
Correct.
I'll call it out. They can come at me.
Shots fired.
Covers,
Yeah,
it's
come at
covers in
me.
the form of theater. Like
Yes.
it's like a theater cover.
Yep, exactly. Which maybe was entertaining to start, but then to go 207 and people are still into it. But whatever. Let's talk about tedious and brief.
Yeah.
Whatever floats your boat, man.
Yeah. And let's even start just with Jamie Jacobsen. So my understanding here is your dad would play all types of different genres when you were growing up. And just having that access to different types of music just obviously, stretches your brain and has you thinking of music in a completely different way. So I didn't know if there was anything in particular from that time frame that kind of inspired you to become a songwriter.
Yeah, the references I have, like Stevie Ray Vaughn, Red Hot Chili Peppers, like that, Muddy Waters. These are people I grew up listening to and thinking can I swear or no?
Absolutely. Yep.
I thought they were the shit. And yeah, obviously I don't sound anything like them and can't rip as hard as any of them. But yeah, so I kind of grew up with that, and then like kind of got into more singer-songwritery people like Glenn Hansard.
Yep.
I remember like my first like obsession was like Mumford.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so all of that informs kind of what I do. And a lot of the new stuff I've been working on actually like is going to kind of hit harder and kind of tap into those original people I was inspired by.
Sure.
So,
Glenn Hansard, I'm a big fan of his too. Did you ever see that movie Once?
Obsessed, yes.
Oh, it's such a good movie.
So good.
Yeah.
I actually covered one of those songs in a band that I was in.
Really? Was it Falling Slowly?
No, When Your Mind's Made Up.
Oh, yes. So
we did it because it was in a weird time signature. It was like, oh, look, this one's in 5. Let's do it.
Right.
I just like a challenge. But so total tangent, but everyone out there who hasn't seen the movie Once should go see it. In some ways, we were just talking about musicals. It was an effort to make a almost realistic musical movie that, you had two people who were musicians, and so they could break out into song about what was going on in a way that would make it almost realistic, and it could have happened in that moment. Or they would just be walking home, listening to things in their AirPods, and you could pass somebody singing at the top. Anyway, I just thought it was a very, very clever, well done movie that tried to take the musical genre and turn it into something realistic. And I thought, and not to mention the music is outstanding and the performances are great. It's very genuine. It's very it's a not over polished version of things. It's a very, very great movie.
Yeah, that movie like also like really informed a lot of my music, and that, and then like another movie like that is kind of a tangent as well, but Across the Universe opened my mind to the Beatles, and then I got into the Beatles and I was like, oh my gosh, why have I never listened to this? Yeah,
it is cool though how movies can do that,
Yeah.
and in such a way to kind of open up, a way of thinking of something in a totally different way. And I could think Across the Universe does a wonderful job at that.
Yeah.
I did not have talk about movies on the list here, so that's a very cool tangent right there.
Yeah.
It's on my bingo card.
We definitely need to do those bingo cards, David. But so growing up, at this point here, you're in the South Side of Chicago. Mm-hmm. So White Sox fan, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, it's like sacrilegious for me not to be a Sox fan. And I grew up, I want to clarify so that people from Chicago don't hate me forever. I grew up on the south suburbs of Chicago. My whole family's from the South Side, so we have a lot of connection to it. I'm like 10 minutes away, but Chicagoans, rightfully so, are very particular.
Yeah.
And a lot of turf war.
Oh yeah. But definitely Sox fan. Fuck the Cubs. And yeah.
It just comes out. You can't help yourself at that point.
Can't help it. That's just who I am, baby.
That's awesome. And then, so I guess maybe, how does it kind of develop from there? Like, where do you really kind of start songwriting or grabbing a musical instrument? And were there people who inspired you, music teachers, or just simply digging in on your own? Like, how did it all evolve, like through high school and into the, afterwards?
Yeah, so honestly, like a big influence was I was part of like church, like band. And so that's kind of like the first taste of like being on a stage and playing music with people that like really helped me understand that dynamic and perspective. But I'd always been writing music and like playing guitar, piano. But I never really thought about doing it as a like living or making music. It was so unattainable to me. Like in Chicago, I knew nobody who made music. And then actually Parker, my husband, who's also the drummer, another member of Tedious and Brief, he moved to Nashville to pursue drumming from Michigan. And he had met up with a couple people, and I was going to do summer internship in Nashville. And he's like, hey, like you have some songs, like why not like make them, produce them out? And I'm like,
Sure.
I can do that. Like that doesn't cost $1 million. And he's like, yeah, like you can do it. And so, yeah. And so he really was like the catalyst of like encouraging me to actually make music and put it out there.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And hence why, now you're partners for each other.
Right. Exactly. We encourage each other in that way.
Absolutely. So where does your move to Nashville happen? Like how does that time frame work for you?
Yeah. So I guess like to do that, we have to go back. So like I interned and like was in Nashville for 2 summers during college. And I actually made the EP like the summer between my sophomore and junior year. And I was going to school in Chicago, but then during the summers, Parker was here and also music was here. So
that answers the what did you do on your summer vacation
question,
which was I recorded an album. And then people are like, I just went to the beach.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I recorded an album in my buddy Nathan Gamble's like room, and I think he had just graduated college, like Belmont, and we kind of both didn't really know what we were doing, and every day after work I would just go to his place and we'd work on music, and we ended up at the end of the summer having an EP. And so then after I graduated college, I think the natural move was like, well, Nashville makes sense for music. And so I moved in the great year of 2020 to Nashville.
Perfect.
It was awesome.
Man, nailed the timing. You probably moved in like January too, where it was like, I've got this on lock. Things are going to come together for me.
It was so wild. So I graduated college, got married, and moved to Nashville in 2020, like height of the pandemic.
Right.
It was perfect timing. And yeah, it was wild, but hey, we're here. It all worked out.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And so the name Tedious and Brief, it's one of those topics that I very often try to stay clear from because it's such a like trope, like, hey, where did the name come from? But I think it's such a unique one that and I saw somewhere that you got kind of inspired from the Serial podcast.
Yeah.
So I figured why not just have a little bit of a convo there because it is such a unique name.
Yeah. No, I love this question. It's like one of my favorite things to talk about.
Cool.
Well, first when I was thinking about naming the project, I was like, I don't want it to be tied to my name. Like, I don't want this to be tied to like my image necessarily. And the Serial has a podcast called S-Town. And there's a guy named John. It basically follows this guy named John.
It's a fantastic podcast. It's a
like,
great story.
It's one of my favorite stories I've ever heard. And like something that really stuck out to me when I was listening to it for like the 5th time was he's a clockmaker, and he like engraves sayings about time into the clocks. And one of them was Tedious and Brief. And I love that. I really resonate with that. And I think it's kind of, I don't know, I told my mom that I was naming my project that, and she's like, that's so negative. And I'm like, in my mind, it's kind of beautiful and like tragic, and it like encompasses all of it. Like,
it's very grounding. Like, it's like, hey, you're not a lot of time here.
Right. It's tedious. Like it's hard, but it's like hard's not bad. Like hard can be really great actually, and it's brief. When you compare it to like the universe. So make it good, make it worth it. Yes. And I think a lot of my music kind of is very existential and kind of talks a lot about time and nostalgia. And so it all just kind of works well together.
So I mentioned this to Phil when he told me the schedule that we were on and you were going to be on it. And I mentioned to my wife, I was like, oh, we're having Tedious and Brief. And she's like, oh, that's from the Midsummer's Night's Dream. And she literally, my wife is a Shakespeare scholar. So it is, in case you want to reference it now, you can sound really, it's Act 5, Scene 1. This is literally, the phrase is, that's where it comes from. That's probably where the clock reference is actually pulled from, is I'm going to read it because it makes it awesome that I get to quote Shakespeare. My wife is the one that does this off the top
Please
of her
read
head.
it. Please read it.
So,
and this was definitely on someone's bingo card as Shakespeare quotes.
It's about this is at the end of the scenes where they can present the play. So if you know the Midsummer Night's Dream, there's a play that within a play that happens, and this is when they're getting ready to wrap the play up. And so he says this: a tedious brief scene of young Paramus and his love Thisbe, very tragically mirth. Merry and tragical, tedious and brief. That is hot ice and wondrous strange snow. So the idea of it's, like an oxymoron in the sense that it's tedious in the sense that it's long and difficult and brief at the same time. It's a great little reference right there in the Midsummer Night's Dream to that exact phrase.
You just blew my mind. I did not know that existed in Shakespeare.
Not only did I not know that, she knew exactly where it was when I told her the name of coming out. She's like, yeah, hold on, it's this. And then she literally hands me her phone. She's like, this is it. And right here. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I'll take this along for the ride.
Oh my gosh, that's going to make me sound so much more pretentious and cool on stage.
Oh yeah, I mean,
actually Shakespeare.
I was going to use the Shakespeare reference, but by referencing this podcast, it humbles things.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
And the other thing too is a lot of times if you internet search something, like that, it'll come up with multiple hits, and I almost always either just hit your, something about your project here or other instances of those words, but never did Shakespeare come up. So it took, Catherine's scholarship to know and nail it down and put it out there.
God bless
it's on
Catherine.
like the second page results, Phil. You gotta turn. Well, you gotta click ahead one page.
Who
Who
knows that far?
And then it's nothing but Shakespeare.
Yes, right. Probably that's probably true. But I can also sense some potential future album names in that, like, Hot Ice or something like that. They could pull from the rest of that scene for
it's
some
just
some
an
names of
entire
albums.
concept album based on Midsummer Night's Dream. I mean, come on, these things are
on
sitting
Pyramus
right
and Thisbe, just
there.
the play within the play.
Yeah,
Catherine, right? Is her name?
Yeah, that's my wife. Yeah,
You just opened up Pandora's box, brother.
Oh yeah, well, and now we're going into a whole nother mythology. Like this is going to go on forever.
This is the most tangential show we've ever done.
And then you could reference the Neil Gaiman award-winning graphic novel that's based on A Midsummer Night's Dream. Like, this could just get, crazy.
That's Inception type stuff.
That's
here.
right. Yep. Yeah, we're going right down.
Wow.
We're here to help.
I love it. I love it.
That was actually the whole point of this. We were asking you on just for this moment right here.
Yeah, I kind of got
else
the
was a
vibe to
ruse.
begin with. I'm glad we went here. This is good. This is good for me.
So now you're, pandemic probably puts a fear in you because of, venues being shuttered and, gigs being canceled and can't even probably get into a studio to record, what have you.
The actual pandemic part of it.
Correct. But but you also have a career path, you have a name, you have a husband, you have you're probably also feeling maybe more sure of things than ever before. It's like, as long as the outside world complied, you were ready to rock and roll. So that's got to be a talk about oxymoron. Like, you're feeling both sides of the coin there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was so weird. It was funny. I have a booking agent, Brandon Hughes, who I had just started. He's the best, but I just started working with him like 2 weeks before the pandemic, and he somehow got me on awesome shows. And then as the day after he told me, he's like, "Oh, and the world is shutting down." So obviously everyone lost stuff in the pandemic, and that is the least of the loss that people experience.
Of course, right.
But it was weird. So many things were going great, and then so many things obviously weren't. But it's funny. I look back on those times fondly, because I was like, wow, the amount of rest I got.
That's so true.
I would go back. I would do a lot to go back to a week of pandemic, just chilling in the house and
not having to make excuses either. You're and we're just not.
Right.
You're not you don't have to be busy. You don't have to come up with an excuse on why you can't do things. It's we just can't.
Yeah.
So that book I've been meaning to get to, I'm going to finish that today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. There's so much, it's everything in life. It's tragic, but it's also beautiful. And
as we were discussing by the symmetry of the name.
I might say it's tedious and brief.
One might say that.
Quote Shakespeare.
To quote the Bard.
So this is now around the time that you're writing that first song, Papercuts, right? Like this, or releasing it. Maybe you wrote it when you were in your teens, right? You wrote it like more like 15. Do I have that right? Yeah. But this is where you're recording it and releasing it, and it's like pretty instantaneously well received, right?
Yeah, that was the craziest thing about like all of this. Like, I had started doing music purely as a passion project. Like, I had saved up like like $2,000 or something, and I was like, okay, like I have like from my college job, and I was like, okay, like I got like some money. I'm just gonna spend it all on music right now, and that's gonna be it. Like I've always wanted to do it. Cross it off the bucket list. I'm gonna do it for myself, and if like my mom listens, cool, you know, like that's it. And then like I like did a release plan by myself, and like I had like no following at all, and then released Papercuts, and like Spotify was like, the Spotify gods shined down upon it, and it was glorious. Like it was awesome. It is
an amazing song. Like it's one of those ones where, you know, I think the moment you hear it, you're into it. Like it's one of those ones that's just like an ear hook worm kind of thing that goes on. But it's one of the first ones, obviously, I heard that made me want to go. So you this is a little bit of out of order, but like you play Musikfest in 2021. And the way that, you know, and people who listen to the show know this, like we prepare for Musikfest by creating usually like a 40-hour Spotify playlist, because it's like 2 to 3 songs per band. There's 410 or so that are on the free stages for Musikfest. So like you just play that from, you know, late May, right around now when those artists get announced, till early August, and you just like start marking off the ones you want to go see. And, you know, and Papercuts is in there, and it's just one of those ones where it's like, I gotta go hear this song. So it's certainly one of those ones I think catches your ears right away. We have a recording of it from last year's Musikfest, so from 2022. We're going to play that after the credits, as people, you know, we started doing that recently, and it just seems like a cool way to kind of, you know, put a little exclamation point on the episode. But after the credits, we'll play a very cool live version of Papercuts from, you know, from Musikfest last year.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then the other song that comes out, like, so I'm sorry, actually you release the EP, self-titled Tedious and Brief 2019, and it has Papercuts and many other tracks that are we were mentioning before from the Audiotree recordings. But again, it's just such an amazing thing. I got to think for the, you know, the music industry to kind of see something so strong come out, so like, you know, just on someone's first, you know, release.
Yeah, it was really special, and it's that was the thing that made me continue to do music. So I was like, oh, like I really enjoyed the process of making this. People seem to enjoy the product, and so I was like, well, why not keep doing it? And then obviously it's like Parker and I get to play music together, so that's sick.
Right.
Yeah, so it super unexpected and really altered the path of my life. I was working a 9 to 5, like, or well, I was planning on doing it, and I eventually did, but like that was my life. I was just gonna be like, oh, I'm just gonna do music as a passion and do the 9 to 5 thing, and that kind of flipped it on its head. Thank God.
Right. Absolutely. And then shortly after that release, then you have the song Slow Down, which is another one that's in that same earworm category of like, it's just it's about, you know, relationship and, you know, working through some things, but it just has, again, such that quality of, we always hesitate to use the word pop here, because again, we're throwing around a lot, synth pop, whatever. It doesn't do you justice for the genre. We always try and ignore genre altogether, but people always kind of want some sort of phrasing to go around it,
right?
Because there is that, like, you know, pop sensibilities. Like it has the ability to catch your ear, but in a way that's still, you know, comprehensive and structured and sophisticated. And I think that's the way your music really lands. And so I heard a rumor that you might be able to play that song live today.
You heard correctly. Yes.
Excellent. So what we'll do is we'll come off the screen, and then you can talk about this song, set it up however you'd like, and then kind of and just take it wherever you know, you would like to perform today.
Sweet. Sounds good.
So Slow Down by Tedious and Brief.
Awesome. All right, let me adjust here. So this song, it's about relationships, and let me move this guy here. It's about like Parker and I, and just being in a spot of like, you know, there with every relationship, there's like it's up and down, and this one is just about like not really in an up time, not really in a down time, just like a middle time of like, I don't know, I feel like something's not totally right, like we just need to figure it out. Nothing crazy, it's not drama, it's just talking about like a really real thing that all relationships go through. So yeah, I just chose to perform this one because I like how it translates onto just acoustic. So yeah, here it is. Slow down. Thought it'd be good. I thought it'd be better than this. These questions bring waves of hidden feelings under the mess. I've been weighed down, cause I thought you were mine to keep. It turns out I'm wrong. Your mess is bigger than me. I didn't think it would take your time. I thought we would have worked this out. My mess comes out in yours. Baby, maybe we need to slow it down. Baby, maybe we need to slow it down. And I've been thinking about it all night, trying to tell myself that just because we're gonna fight doesn't mean that we're not alright. We'll figure it out, and now we just need to slow down. I know it's hard, I know it's a lot to take. You're doing just fine, better than me any day. You've been weighed down, the weight of this life on your own, but I think it's time that you stop walking alone. I didn't think we'd be here by now, just two kids on a winter day. 4 years seem shorter somehow. Baby, maybe we need to slow it down. Baby, maybe we need to slow it down. And I've been thinking about it all night, trying to tell myself that just because we're gonna fight doesn't mean we're not alright. We'll figure it out, but now we just need to slow down. And I can't change you, and I don't want to, and I just need you to be on my team too. And I've been thinking about it all night, trying to tell myself that just because we're gonna fight doesn't mean that we're not alright. It doesn't have to be this hard, and we fought so long to make it this far. So help me when I'm down, let's turn it around, cause this isn't who we are. We'll figure it out, but now we just need to slow down. Thank you.
Gosh, that is a touching version of that. That is wonderful.
Oh, thanks.
I'm so glad we did that. I mean, it sounded amazing.
Sick. Good. Okay.
Yeah, I think you're going to really like it when you listen back to it, because awesome. It came across really well, and it just was so heartfelt. I mean, it's a completely different take on that song. I mean, that's amazing.
You're right. It does translate well. Yes, you mentioned that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny because all of my music I write is mostly on just me and acoustic guitar in a room, and then I take it to a producer who just puts magic on it, and so it's cool. Like I had an acoustic gig like a month ago, and I played everything by myself for like an hour and a half, and I was like, wow, that was so different than my live set. Usually I'm dancing like a fool, and
well, if I remember Musikfest last year, you were on the big stage and you played the first, call it 30 minutes, just you, and then the band came out and played the other 40 or so, if I remember.
Yeah, we had they played the first couple songs, and then I did a couple alone, and then that's
what it was. Which was a really cool thing too, because now you could kind of get a flavor for both types.
Right. Yeah. And and it also helps fill time if I need to fill that time.
And there's that. Yeah.
But,
We've had people on the show before where they're like, the week of, they realize that their set is 90 minutes, not just a 90-minute window. And they're like, we only have 60 minutes of music.
Right.
Yeah. And then time to practice some new stuff. So
right, yeah. Now is the time to whip out the acoustic and play some cover.
Exactly. Right,
exactly. It's like, who wants to do that cover song
Yeah.
that you're talking about? And then the band just has a 20-minute argument about covers.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. They're like, this cover sucks. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That's so
For
awesome.
sure.
Well, great. So wanted to make sure that, we touch on the more recent single. You just released one, about a year ago now, but Tired Work is your latest single. It's in this more vein of like, very kind of emotionally vulnerable and, bad work environments, if I understand it right. And very topical, sadly, has always been, and yet still continues to be. But another amazing song that people should check out, and it's your most recent work.
Thanks. Yeah, it was fun to this song came from a deep place within of rage. It was fun to get that part of me out a little bit. I had a really, really bad boss who did some bad things to me, and I was just like, wow, there's so many people who look like they're on top, who have gotten there by just abusing their power, and I wanted to just make a fuck you anthem of you're not gonna win at the end of the day, and you're sad. So
I do think too, for people there are so many people just silently suffering in that same way,
right?
And unfortunately, when an effort is made to address it, it gets retaliated against. So it's just a toxic environment. I mean, that's typically the word put towards it, which doesn't do it even enough justice. But I think this is a song that will, again, the relatability of your music and your lyrics will have people, I think, connecting with this song in a way that's like, yeah, that happens to me too. And this just helps me feel not alone. So I think that's a good thing to have out there for people.
Thanks. Yeah, it sucks because it's a job. You need to pay the bills. And so I recognize that you can't get out of it most of the time. And,
right. Especially then if there's family or kids or whatever, and you just, you can't take that, that necessary step, even though it should be what's done. It's the right thing to do, but you're stuck. So yeah, it's a unfortunate reality that I think hopefully people would inspire people to no longer stand for it.
Right.
Or at a minimum, just realize that they're not alone.
Totally. Yeah.
For sure. And then I was going to bring up your website if there was anything else you wanted to promote here at the close.
Yeah.
Let me bring that in here so you can talk about it.
Cool.
And because there's this real cool photos that you have too, this must have been such a fun shoot to do because all the pictures are so amazing.
Dude, yeah. The photographer was Luke Rogers, and he's based in Nashville, and he's just he actually was someone I wanted to work with for so long, and I DM'd him and I'm like, he's never gonna respond, and then he did, and I'm like, oh my god,
that's awesome. Yep.
And so yeah, it was really fun. But to promote, I mean, Parker and I have been working on music for a while, and I feel like it's finally gonna come to fruition soon, and so we'll be releasing a lot of fun stuff in the coming months. So
exciting.
Nice.
Anything specific to promote? I mean, we have some shows, some to be announced for the summer.
Got it.
So
nothing's yet on here. Okay.
Nothing's coming up yet, but I'll announce those in the coming weeks. But just honestly, follow me on Instagram.
Yep.
That's where I kind of announce everything. Yeah, I have merch, super cool.
Yeah, you're gonna sling some merch. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah,
I like the description that goes with the CD because it may favor how my life exists with my older car and the CD player. So
amazing. Yeah. We are always selling merch. So yeah, that's just stay tuned for what's to come. There's a lot to come. We have a new project coming out we're stoked about.
And you mentioned Brandon Hughes earlier, Rebel Talent Alliance. I think we could give him a shout out too, because he does have an amazing stable of artists, and he does do a great job. So shout out to Brandon, and can't wait to hear more about the tours that are coming up. I'll keep my fingers crossed that East Coast comes into play on this one.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today. It was an honor.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was super fun.
Awesome. David?
Phillip.
So let's recap. What did we learn today?
That Drake has a lot of success on the Billboard 100 chart thing.
Right. Single greatest musician of all time. Second place, Jamie Jacobsen of Tedious and Brief.
Right. I think she was right up there. Maybe right outside the top 10 because of just time of releases. You know, like you only get so many in so much time.
Right.
But we did learn a lot of great things about both her love of the White Sox and hatred of the Cubs.
Yep,
we
fuck
learned
the Cubs.
about
we
her.
learned that.
Sort of excellent take on presenting vulnerable or complex topics in accessible music. I mean, like there's, like you mentioned, the earworm factor. There's a pop melody structure definitely to this stuff that definitely helps with some of that where you're like, hey, cool. And then next thing you know, you're really listening to the words and you're like, wow, that's a bit more of a heavier hit than I thought.
Exactly right. Yeah. We learned that, Shakespeare is awesome.
Well, first of all, we didn't have to learn that.
Right,
we
true.
knew that.
No, but
I mean,
listen,
it's innate.
It's all in this episode.
Look, my wife tells me that every day, and I must accept that on face value.
Somebody needs some therapy. When we learned that the song "Slow Down" is excellent in any format, whether it's the airy synth pop version that you can catch by streaming it or purchasing it. And then also now you have access to a lovely, vulnerable acoustic version here.
Fingers crossed for bluegrass version coming soon. It's gonna be.
All right, Phil. Let's say goodbye to everybody.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Your Next Favorite Band. We'd like to sincerely thank Jamie Jacobsen of Tedious and Brief for sharing all of her stories of inspiration and how the music was written and her travels to Nashville and what brought her there and brought all of this great music into our ears. We will link to her site and the various different socials and platforms in order to learn more about Tedious and Brief. Hopefully purchase some music and some merch from them and learn more about give them a follow on social so that you can stay up to date on when they'll be touring and hopefully in your town where you can go catch them out there. Outstanding live performer. You can catch that Audiotree sessions either on YouTube or on the Audiotree website. So even the music is out there to stream on her channel, but if you go there, you'll be able to see the performances. And like we said, she's so much fun to watch perform live. It's excellent. So as always, our hope here is to bring you your next favorite band. If you happen to tune in today because you already knew Tedious and Brief, thank you for tuning in. Our hope is that you might like, subscribe, and follow us so that we can bring you your next favorite band in a future episode. We are on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, and so you can find us in multiple different platforms and be able to keep up on things. We have lots of great stuff coming up here for the rest of May, June, and July, and then obviously the fire hose of content that is Musikfest in August. So lots of great stuff. Hope to see you at a live show soon. Stay tuned for our live version of Papercuts.
The song's called Papercuts.